talk about wonky stars. I'm going to walk you through all the steps to make wonky stars for the Vela star quilt pattern. So join me. All right, so let's get started. What I have here are my star fabric squares that are going to be turned into triangles, my star fabric center, and then my background squares. So I'm going to start by taking these star fabrics that are going to be cut on the diagonal because we're going to use them for the points of the stars. So let's start by cutting those on the diagonal. All right, so now that they're on the diagonal, we can start making a star. So we're going to take a background fabric and one star triangle. And what we're going to do, if you are new to this, what I recommend is starting out by sort of placing the fabric where you want it to be at the end, which is somewhere around here. And then flip it over so that you can see where it's going to go when you sew it down. So you want to make sure that your bottom intersection is past the middle, which in this case it is. The middle would be on this line, so it's past the middle. And then this guy is really anywhere you want up here. You can make it a little more wonky this way. You can make it a little more wonky this way. Since these are wonky stars, you don't have to worry so much about precise measurements. You get to just throw it on and sew it down. So now that I've got this down, we're going to sew 1/4 inch away from the diagonal of the triangle. And so let me go do that real quick. Okay, so I've sewn 1/4 inch away from the diagonal, and now I can trim off this excess background right here. Since we're not going to need it, we're going to be folding this guy over. Before we do that though, I really do like to just check to make sure we're going to end up at the right size. And to do that, just fold your star fabric over real quick and say, does it actually cover all the white? If the answer is yes, you are good to go. If you, for example, are like this and you've got white showing, then your square is not going to be big enough at the end, so you need to rip out your seam and try again. But in my case, it is covering all the white when I fold it over, so I can trim off this excess right here, just like that, and then I can press this open. So I'm going to press this like this and be right back. All right, so I actually didn't press it open. I pressed it to the dark side by basically just folding over the star print. And so now we're going to repeat it. So let's take another triangle, and we want it to look like this at the end. So if we flip this guy over, somewhere around here would be good. We are past the center down here. We're around up there, and if we practice fold it over, it should cover the white, so this is a pretty good spot for us to put it in. I'm going to make it a little wonky, and I'm going to throw it on like that. Okay, so now we're going to sew 1/4 inch away from the diagonal. All right, so I have sewn 1/4 inch from the diagonal. I can throw it over real quick to make sure, does it cover the white? Yes, it does. Perfect. Now I'm going to trim off the excess since we don't need that part, and then press this by just flipping this over. All right, so this is looking good. What we're gonna do now is we need to trim down the excess on the sides here. For this particular block size, these background squares were 2 inches, so we're gonna trim this back down to 2 inches. And this white with these two corners is our baseline. So we basically want to mark at the 2 inch line, keeping the bottom and this corner in the right place. So now I've got two sides that are good. So now let me trim over here, 2 inches on both sides, trim and trim. And that is our first side for the star. So this will go in the center. We will have 4 background squares on the corners, and then we need 4 of these guys with the points of the stars. So let me go make those real quick. All right, let me move this. All right, so I've got my first triangle on for each of these guys. I can trim off the excess. And you can see if you take a look, I did different amounts of wonkiness for each of these. These two are kind of similar. This one's pretty different. And it's just gonna make for a more wonky, more differentiated star. You have lots of options as to where you place these triangles if you wanna make it more or less wonky. I tend to end up a little on the less wonky side myself, but I have had some testers who really lean into the wonkiness, which is really fun to see. It makes for a very interesting quilt at the end. All right, second triangle applied. Now I can trim my excess and press. And now I can do my trimming. So we're going to trim each of these, in this case, to 2 inches, but make sure and take a look at your pattern for Vela, if that's the star quilt that you're making, and see what size you're supposed to trim it down to, because for each star size, there's a different size that you will trim it down to. Yeah, this one turned out a little wonky, and that's good. That is always fun. All right, so let's move this down so you can see. We've got all of the components of our star done now. So now all we have to do is sew together our pieces to make a star. So let me go do that. All right, and here is our final star block. For each of the stages where I'm piecing the squares together, I like to press open, and you can see the wonkiness, right? This point is higher than this point. They're all a little bit different, and that's the fun of wonky stars. I hope you all enjoyed making your first wonky star. There's a bunch of them in the Vela quilt pattern, so I really hope you have a good time making it. Thank you.